Whitney, welcome to Women Seeking Wholeness, coming to us from one of my favorite places in the whole world, Sedona area, Arizona. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to have a conversation about spirit and intuition.
Yeah, it's so cool because there are many people that are sort of promoting this new way of being in business, like intuitive business, and intuitive parenting and intuitive eating. And so we'll dive into what kind of like what that means to you, because I know you've been teaching this for a while. You have an amazing plethora of resources on your website, and you teach a lot about, coming into yourself. But what I'm really curious about to start with first, because everyone's got a story, is how did the work of spirit guides, like how did that become kind of one of your things? How did it find you?
I want to laugh, and I probably will, just looking back at how I came to this. So, when I was really young, I saw a lot of things that were unexplained when I was growing up. And that kind of sparked my curiosity. Like, what is that? I remember one time I was actually in bed as a child, and I saw this figure in the doorway coming toward me. And I really thought it was a person, like a human person. And I thought it was my dad, just shaped off of the height. And I thought it was a male. And anyway, it wasn't my dad. And I ended up running right through this figure into my mom and
Oh,
dad's bedroom.
whoa.
And I was so scared. And I made them check for footprints because I was like super sure that somebody had come into the house. They looked everywhere and couldn't find anything. So I wish at that age, I would have had somebody to tell me, hey, this is, your intuition. This is your spirit helpers coming in. And unfortunately, a lot of parents out there don't have those tools. I think they do more so now. And so the answer was, hey, Whitney, it's just in your imagination. It was just a dream. So I always had that seed planted, and I was curious, curious, and curious. And then one day, as I kind of got older, I remember seeing a figure come sit on my bed, and I was in my early 20s.
Gosh, how
I
did you
was
not absolutely flip out?
Oh, I did. Oh, I did. So I was at my parents' house visiting from college, and it was late at night, and I saw this woman with red hair and a pink shirt, and she sat at the edge of my bed. And at the time, I had no idea what to say, or I had no idea what to do. And I screamed and I said, "You're dead. Go to the light." I had no,
Wow.
like, I didn't know what else to do. So I like shoved the covers above my head. And from that moment on, though, I shut everything down. And that means I shut my energy down. I shut my chakra system down. I shut my
Mm,
intuition and my spiritual guidance down. So what happened
just
then
fear. It
is,
was because of the
yeah,
fear, right?
it was so much fear because I didn't have the education. I didn't have the knowledge of what it was. I didn't have a mentor. And unfortunately, in a lot of religions, we're taught that that's bad or that's evil, or movies, the movies come up and we're taught that, this is kind of spooky stuff and people get really afraid of it. And I was also afraid of it. And the
Yeah.
only education I had was watching TV shows about this. I thought, I'm just going to tell them to go to the light. I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Well, in my religion of origin, Mormonism, um, I cannot tell you. Yeah, I was in my late 40s, early 50s. I'm 53 now. When I figured out that I was terrified of evil spirits my whole life, because the programming was if I did something wrong, like if I had a bad thought or, if I made a wrong choice or something, even inadvertently, that I would invite in this evil presence. And that kept me from, like, how do I know if this is a spirit of the light? If this is, a person, let's just say that wants for my good, or something that's trying to sabotage me. And for so many years, there was like, all these myths and things like, well, if you ask to shake their hand, they won't shake your hand if they're not of the light. And there were just all these myths and legends and things circulating in my head culturally for my religion that I really like you said, to some degree, I sort of shut down. Like, I don't want to invite the wrong thing. So I think I'll just not invite anything from the other side because then I might be deceived or whatever. I don't know if you had similar programming. It
Mhm.
was a thing for me for so long.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the biggest things that holds people back from really accessing their intuition and their spirit guides guidance is fear. And for me, I thought, oh my gosh, it's the same thing. I did not want to invite something that was bad. How do I know that this is good? How do I know that this is not good? And for somebody who's already sensitive, it's like another job. I thought, oh no, like I need a filter. This is too much to discern.
Mhm.
So I just, for years, shut it down. And that led me to not making choices that were for my highest good because I was disconnected from my own energy. I was disconnected from that inherent, innate, intuitive ability that I was born with because I refused to listen to anything that didn't make logical sense.
Mm.
So I ended up working in a job that I hated, living in a place that I hated, and being really unhappy. And what happened is I had a lot of health issues. I shut everything down. So I wasn't really releasing energy. I wasn't receiving energy. And I could not walk from my bed to my bathroom without resting. That's a short span to
Mm.
walk. And at this point, I was going to apply for disability. I thought, I don't know what's wrong with me. The doctors didn't quite know what was wrong with me. So my aunt told me, hey, we're going to go to this place in Arizona, and this is a holistic place, and you're going to just go there and we're going to just see. I said, okay. So we go there, and I had energy healing, which by the way felt really, really uncomfortable for me. And I got off the table early because I was receiving energy and I thought this is
Mm.
weird. I feel all these different sensations because really my energy was opening up. And after these treatments, after really being immersed in a spiritual environment and understanding that all these people that were helping me were connected to their spirit guides and they're doing good work and they're helping me and they're helping other people, I was able to go on a guided hike in the desert on day 4. Whereas before I couldn't even go from my bed to my bathroom without
Mm.
resting. And when we came home, my father picked me up from the airport and he kept staring at me and then would drive away. And I said, hey, like, why aren't you stopping? I got to get in the car. He did this on the third time I called him and he said, are you the person in the red hat? And I said, yes. Why aren't you stopping? And he said, oh my God, I thought that looked like you, but it couldn't be you because this person had too much energy. Like my
Mm.
body, my demeanor, everything shifted when I really connected back into my own energy and my intuition and opened up and reestablished a connection to my guides to understand that this can be used for good. And so I think I needed that slap in the face to go, listen, you just
Yeah.
had a fantastic healing. And these guides, your energy, your intuition is here to guide you in a positive way. And then it can guide you on your path to help others. So it's a long story, but that was an
Mm.
impactful moment in my life.
I want to come back to the lady with the red hair and the pink shirt.
I felt
Like
so
I
bad.
freaked out by that. What did you find out around that? Was it good? Nefarious? Was it?
Yeah,
It was
it
nefarious.
was. It was one of my spirit guides, but I did not have any kind of understanding or, let's say, education in the field of knowing what that was. And so I had been inviting and I had been welcoming of spirit, so much so. But what happens is sometimes we say, I'm ready, let's do this, I can't wait. And then when you see a spirit come in, it's like, oh my gosh, this is too scary. I'm going
Just
to
too
shut the doors
much.
forever.
Yeah.
So that's when I tell people that learn from me, hey, we're going to do this in a way so that you don't run away really fast and shut the doors for
Mm.
years.
Yeah,
So
but
yeah, it was one of my
people
guides.
typically don't see. So the fact that you have that gift is amazing because that's very atypical. I mean, I remember going through a season where I would pray to see and then I prayed not to see.
I know,
I'm
I
sure God's like, Well, you, okay, I'm gonna just let you figure it out. Like, do you really want to know? Because if you actually want to know, I went to, do you know who Dr. Joe Dispenza is?
Mhm.
Okay, so my husband and I went to his week-long advanced meditation retreat in Mexico earlier this year, and his whole thing is about accessing the pineal gland, like opening up your heart field, the frequency of your heart, and opening, that energy field, and then having, brain and heart coherence, and then moving the energy up this, the really the cerebral spinal fluid from your lower centers and breath, and locking it up into the pineal gland and holding it there as a means to really have kind of this I don't know, people have all kinds of experiences going dimensional travel and all these things that you can do without psychedelics, really. And so it was fascinating to be with 1,500 other people who are kind of trying to figure it out. Some of them are more advanced. Some people were having amazing experiences. But I remember saying to my husband, I'm scared to actually, like, here I am learning all this, but it's kind of freaky that I could actually have, some kind of an astral event or a cosmic, awakening or something around that, right? And then we decided together, it's like, yeah, maybe we have been sabotaging ourselves because we're putting this in a box, but it's not. It's the whole point is to get out of that box and allow that energy to take you and teach you. But it's freaky. Like, it is freaky. It can be.
I think it can be. And, we're all born with this energy. I call it like this energy recipe. And what really, when we open up the gifts that a lot of us say, or the abilities that we were born with innately. And it can look different for each person. So I call it the four intuitive languages,
Mhm.
where just because you don't see doesn't mean that you're not intuitive. For instance, you could have a different language, such as feeling or knowing, which a lot of people, by the way, that have that knowing language think they're not intuitive at all, but they're really connected. And you can even taste and smell messages coming in from spirit as well. So sometimes people who are not wanting to see, perhaps that is not one of the languages that they were naturally born with. And so they can open up. I'm thinking of it like a flower as a bud opening up with their natural energetic language, which is perhaps feeling or maybe hearing or knowing. And if you don't have the sight, you can also do some exercises to enhance that. So it's kind of like maybe that's not your natural ability that was like your superpower, but you
Mhm.
can still develop it if you so desire. And there's exercises to do it too.
Fascinating. So what are these four intuitive languages? You had names for them when we were talking earlier. They were about, there was like
Yeah.
an owl and something. I just remember the owl because
Yeah.
I love owls. I don't know what it
Oh,
is. Yeah.
sure. So I call them languages. You can also think of them as archetypes. So people who can see spirit or see their messages, I call them seers. So for instance, if you're a visual learner, I am, like I have to read things, I have to see the things,
Yeah, I understand.
then it may be that that is one of your more natural abilities is sight, whether you are open to it or not. Most likely, if you're visual, it's there. So
Hmm.
when people meditate or they're asking for answers, they can see colors like in their mind's eye. Sometimes they might see colors with their eyes open. They may see a moving image. And perhaps they may see an image of a face. If you're a dreamer, and you wake up and you feel like the dreams were lots of color and you remember the people, then that's a great indication that that channel is there for you to access and that channel is there for you to open. And a lot of times with seers, color is a big deal. It's like, what am I wearing? Color is a big deal. Or maybe color's too much and my eyes need rest. So there's a lot of things that go on, and it's just how your energy is built. So if you think of, if I'm in school, how do I take in information? If it's through visual learning, then knowing that that's really designed for you too, to see spirit as well.
Hmm.
Then there's the owl. The owl is hearing messages. And one of the biggest, I would say, complaints that people have is they'll say, "Oh my gosh, Whitney, I don't know if this is me making this up and talking to myself, or
Right,
if this is
exactly.
an intuitive message."
Yeah, well, yeah, I think I have a lot of that. I hear things. I hear dead people. Just kidding. Uh, it is an interesting sort of practice to just decipher where these voices are coming from versus just mind chatter. And it's like,
Yeah.
was that just, and I feel like if I have one of them, maybe that's why I like owls. I
I
didn't
was
know they were
thinking.
good at hearing.
I love that. So with owls, it's this place where you can definitely hear a message from the, like it sounds like I'm talking to you, but most of the time it's your inner reading voice. And the
Mhm.
trick is when it comes in super fast, you know it's an intuitive message. Another
Mm,
thing you can do, which is what I encourage everybody that works with me, is hey, we need to look at clearing your mind before you receive intuitive messages and create space in your day to talk to your spirit guide. So, you know, whatever's coming through in that 5 to 15 minutes is intuitive. And the
mhm,
more you build this muscle, the more you build your intuitive language and you really feel strength in it, the more you're going
mhm.
to recognize when it's intuitive versus when it is a thought. But normally, what happens, let's say you're asking a question and you're saying, "I'd love to know the energy around XYZ," for instance. Well, your spirit guides give you messages through your intuitive channel. So if you're hearing, the answer is going to come in before you've even asked the question. It's energy. So we have our thoughts that go out
Like
as
a
energy.
precognition thing, like
It's
before you
more,
can even contextualize the language around what
yes.
you need, the answer's already coming through.
Yes, because it's in your energy. So spirit operates through energy. It's already in your energy field. And it's just this energy that you send out with the intention that they hear it versus before your physical body, your brain has time to figure out the words to put it, the energy's already there.
Mm,
So it's more so, oh, we've got it. Here's the answer. And then it comes in your channel really fast before you've even said anything. So
mhm.
really developing that. And owls tend to talk to themselves out loud. They might be verbal processors. They may need a lot of
Ooh,
quiet.
ooh.
I love
Sorry, I
that.
just had
You're
to
like,
throw
that
that
is
in there.
me.
That's the only sound I know they make. But I mean, yeah,
Absolutely.
I love this. Have you heard of echolocation that bats do?
Yes.
That kind of
Hmm.
reminds me of what you're saying about the energy is that they can throw sort of their, I don't know, their hearing or their whatever,
Hmm.
their voice even, and their signaling out, away,
Yes.
outside of
Hmm.
them. Yeah. And we are
Definitely.
signals. We are like just receiving signals. That's all we are is a signal. Well, not, we're more than that,
Yeah,
but you know what I mean?
I
Energetically,
do.
we're bringing
Mhm.
that in all the time. Right.
Absolutely. I say we're antennas, right? It's like we can emit energy, but we're receiving all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
you can increase that sensitivity of your antenna. And for those out there listening who are really super sensitive, you can actually reroute it, or you can even decrease the sensitivity as well, which I always say, let's try to reroute it first if it's like too scary. So let's say that you were a seer or you are an owl and you are like, I don't know, you can work to reroute it as a feeling or reroute it as a knowing in your body that comes into.
Oh, cool. I like that
Yeah.
idea. So, okay,
Yeah.
so we've got a seer, an owl, and then
And then the empath. I think a lot of people are familiar with the empath. So the empath feels their messages. So a lot of times, I think the more traditional route is we will think of the gut feeling, such as this is a strong yes or this is a strong no. The problem comes in when empaths haven't had any really real training and they are like, is this my energy or is this somebody else's? Or, is this my anxiety or is this my intuitive feeling? So really strengthening and getting to know your own energy is going to be really important as an empath, because a lot of time empaths will pick up more or give great advice to somebody who is connecting with their energy
mm,
versus they don't necessarily connect with their own energy as much in the beginning. Usually it's just naturally they're here kind of to merge, to understand. So really strengthening the energy boundaries within who you are is helpful. And also they can receive messages like like almost like feeling a touch on the body. That can be something that comes up as well.
Mhm.
But traditionally it's going to be more so in that this feels good, this doesn't feel good. And I talk about the aura bubble for empaths because that can be really helpful in differentiating, this is my space, this is
Yeah.
your space
Yeah.
with that, and kind of really strengthening that, I think could be really important. So just a quick tip is, I always say, what's the first color that comes to your mind? Visualize it right there in your abdomen, and then just take a couple deep breaths and see that energy move out around you 2 feet in every direction.
Mm.
And then on the outer edges of that colored energy that's 2 feet around you, just imagine a filter there so that good stuff comes in and it's breathable fabric, but heavy stuff can't come through.
Cotton.
It bounces off. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so my 3 older kids are now in college. I didn't know a lot about this stuff when I was raising them, but totally empathic. I mean, picking up, absorbing everything. I mean, a lot of their friends are too. It's just their kind of generation, like late millennials, early Gen Zers are complete empaths. They're like um sponges, like absorbing all of the stuff around them, and they feel so deeply. So would you say that an empath is maybe how maybe they're not seeing or hearing necessarily so sensitively, they're just feeling it in their body and being
Absolutely.
affected negatively sometimes?
Yes, I really see that. I have friends with children, and I've seen just in that generation, there's just so many empaths, and it can be helpful. I think this world needs more sensitivity,
Yeah.
but also I think that we need to be teaching how to navigate the world with that sensitivity
Yes,
as well. So
absolutely.
absolutely, and someone can have multiple intuitive languages, but generally speaking, there's one primary, and there could even be two that are close tied
Mhm.
together. But sometimes we just have one, and we're just so entranced with that one that we don't even recognize the others that are there.
Yeah.
So yes.
Well, it makes me think about what you were saying earlier, because you're probably, in addition to being a seer, you're an empath. So, you had this experience of your spirit guide coming, and then you just kind of shut everything down. And that's what empaths do. They they get so like it's better to not feel anything than to feel everything. They numb out,
Yeah.
they go into substances, or they just disconnect, and go into depression, anxiety states. And that's also what we're seeing at large, is just
Yeah.
this almost like a plague of depression, anxiety from empaths.
Absolutely. My husband is an extreme empath, and he's worked on this, but he would just shut people out. And he'll definitely tell that story because it was like, I don't want to feel anything because I feel it too deeply. So it's
Mhm.
really this place of, how do I extend and have a balance of both? Because I think that we forget sometimes when we're shutting everything out, we're shutting off that part of ourselves that we need to listen to, which is part of the story I shared where I shut everything out.
Mhm.
It's like air. And when you're shutting out energy, you're not breathing. You're not really breathing in and feeding that spiritual part of yourself and that emotional part and that mental part. We need that. It's like soil of a
Mhm.
plant. And what are we planted in? Are we nurturing
Mhm.
the soil?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and for an empath, at least my experience, and I believe I am, and I have that too from a very young age. I could feel people's intentions when I was little. So just to give you an example, I have a sister a year older and a sister 2 years younger, and we were all super close. And they didn't have that radar. That's not nothing. I mean, they were very spiritual and very gifted. But I think there was this like discernment I had from a little girl where I would be distrustful because I could feel the intention of the person in my space. I could discern their light level and their intention. And my sisters were just like, oh, like, let's just love everyone. And anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because it's not something I honored in myself. Like, for instance, sitting in church, I would hear something like a dogma and it would just land in me like, ew, like that doesn't connect. That, and for so many years, I bypassed over that in favor of just, keeping the peace or whatnot. So, yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing for
It
empaths.
is. It is. This is definitely a thing. And one thing I say to people who feel like I'm not intuitive at all, I'll talk about the channeler in a minute, but what did you feel when you were a child? Just like you shared, going back to that's a language. And then what happens is we shut that down because it's not necessarily tangible. It's not something I can hold in my hand, or it's not being nurtured and not being fed. So we just kind of disassociate that from who we are,
Mhm.
which I'm glad that you reconnected, and I hope so many others reconnect out there to their intuitive language too, because we can just sense, and it's just we're born with it, and we
Yeah.
need to nurture to
And
learn
I
it,
feel
to
like
learn
that's
how.
a very feminine, energetic response, right? Even in it's not gender specific, but like just coming into your feminine and honoring your knowing. I think it's becoming more and more, people are talking about it more, like honor your knowing. But that's part of that piece where it's like, oh, well, I can trust this intuition that I have. I don't need to defer to an exterior authority. I can have that. And I think we're trying to claim that, especially as women. And it's the struggle is real, for a lot of us to claim that.
Yeah. It is. And then when we communicate it to others, I think that's a struggle. Uh, my husband and I have worked on this throughout the years, but when I say, he'll ask me a question, or I just say no, and he'll say, why? And I felt like I had to prove, well, because of this logical reason and this logical reason. And it took a while to realize, even when you communicate, I don't know why. I just know it's a feeling, or I just know that's the answer. That's what it is. And the more that you start communicating that and listening and trusting, the more you yourself will see the validation of why you did it later.
Yeah.
But it's like a breadcrumb. It's like spirit's giving you the intuitive breadcrumb, and you're not going to know the entire outcome. You're just supposed to find the
Yeah,
breadcrumb. Yeah.
exactly. Okay. So what's the fourth one? So we have seer, owl, empath.
Yeah, the channeler. So the channeler, I love talking about the channeler. It's some channelers think they're not intuitive. This is why I like talking about it. The channeler, though, is so connected to their intuition by their body. So channelers can have a knowing where something just pops into their mind and they just know, such as, oh, I was thinking of Sarah, and then you hold up your phone and there's Sarah. Or perhaps you just know something to be true. I remember a couple of instances. One was our family was interviewing to adopt two dogs, and this was from a rescue organization. So you have a visit, you have to fill an application, and these are highly sought after dogs. And after the interview, they said, okay, we have other people we're going to see, but we'll get back to you. My mom just went straight to the pet store and started buying all the toys. And I said, what are you doing? Like, we don't know we have these dogs. She's like, oh, they're ours. She just starts buying them. I'm like, it's what it is.
Mm,
So it's a knowing.
mhm,
Another story I share is back when my first marriage, I was at home. Nobody was there with me other than my three dogs and two cats. And I was making dinner for myself, and I got really mad that my husband at the time had lost his wedding ring. And I thought, I'm just mad. And all of a sudden I thought, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Nobody's told me this. I'm like mad at something that it's not even real. So
mhm.
he came home that night, and I never spoke about it. And then the next day he said, yesterday I lost my wedding ring and I was afraid to tell you. So I was trying to look everywhere. And I just laughed, like, oh my gosh, like it just pops into
Mhm.
your mind. Another thing with a channeler, though, it's their body. So it's sometimes we can't do something. Maybe you have commitments or something like that. Now, I'm a person that believes in, if you had said yes to something, and when you said that yes, you are aligned with it, let's honor that commitment. However, if
Mhm.
your body isn't feeling well, or your body just needs to completely sleep and you're just dragging, that in a sense is intuitive. Now, channelers also find themselves just saying stuff. They don't know why they're saying it. It just comes out, and it's almost like they have no filter. And they can say this with good advice, and they give this amazing advice. And then later they'll go, what did I even say? Like, I don't know why I said that thing. Or sometimes they say something and they're like, oh, it just came out. So it's the body being super intuitive. And this also happens with going places at the right time. So for some reason, let's say that they have an appointment. This happened with us. We had somebody we would have loved to run into. It was one of our mentors in Sedona, and it was my husband's birthday, and we had plans, but we just kept getting delayed over and over and over. And so we were late. And I said, well, honey, do you want to go do this, or do you want to go to dinner? And because we're not going to be able to do both, we'll have to eat something quick. And all of a sudden it popped into my head. I said, let's go to this place. And it was a place that he didn't really like, but he said, yeah, let's do it. And we did it, and we ran into that mentor.
Oh, really?
So it was just more so that knowing and your body taking you there. So a lot of times people think it has to be outside of you. It has to be external. I have to see, I have to hear, I have to feel. Versus channelers, it's inherent, and it's like it's not coming in from anywhere else but themselves. It's more so my body is reacting this way. I said this thing, and I know this thing. And truly our intuition is within us anyway. It's just more of how it's generated. We're so used to the different senses that it's weird in a sense when we try to just trust what we've been doing naturally for years, not realizing it's intuition, but it is. Exactly, so it's more so your body and listening to that body.
That's really beautiful. I want to kind of segue into, as we kind of culminate this discussion, with spirit guides. So I would say there's, maybe this link or a bridge between your intuition and your spirit guides, because that's how they come through to you, right? So so connecting with your intuition is as a byproduct of that, you will connect more with your guides. But like we were talking about earlier, there's so much ambiguity with this, like tapping into different frequencies. And, I guess you could say, that when you're in the big quantum field, there's a lot. So how do you know that you're connecting with your actual spirit guides? What are they? And just, I would love your take on that, because you have a lot of experience.
Sure. So your spirit guides, I would say 9 times out of 10 have lived an earth plane life before, so that they can help you with things on the earth plane. Not always, but most of the time. So they are, I would say, lighter than you are, more knowledgeable than you are, or they wouldn't necessarily be guides for us. And let's say you're an artist, then most likely you have a spirit guide that helps you with art and specializes in art. And you might even see your intuitive messages through a painting, for instance. Like as a symbol, if you're a seer, you may see paintings when you meditate. That's an example. So your spirit guides are objective. They're here to help you. And I like to think of them as counselors or therapists and teachers, because they have had to go through some training to understand how to work with the energetic body of a human. Versus sometimes we look to our loved ones in spirit as guides. And while they can guide us, they're not necessarily our spirit guides the way that I'm talking about. They can guide us, give us helpful information. But generally speaking, we have a teacher guide, a guide, and a protector guide. And that was the aha moment for me when I realized I had a protector guide, because what a protector guide does is get to say who has the VIP pass to come talk to Whitney. So I didn't have to worry about the people showing up. I can also talk to my protector guide to say, I don't want anybody showing up in my house. Only when I want to talk to spirit will somebody be allowed through, to understand that. And what you can do is develop your intuitive language, of course, But also your spirit guides, you can ask them for validation or ask to meet them. So with your guides, for instance, before you fall asleep, you can ask, hey, I'd like to get to know you a bit more. I'd like to go on an astral visit with you, or let's have a dream. I'm doing air quotes kind of here, with getting to know you a bit more. So they can present themselves that way. They can also, what I like to say is make 5 to 15 minutes every day to talk to your guides and just set the intention. I'm clearing my mind, and whatever comes through during that time is going to be intuitive. And you can ask them your questions that you have as well. And you can ask their names. You can ask for messages. And it's just about developing a rapport for your more of your understanding. And the more that you talk to them, the more you develop a relationship with them. So it's similar to anybody you first meet. It's kind of like, all right, I'm getting to know you. I'm not going to let my boundaries down too much. Then like you get to know them a little bit more. Oh, I'm going to open up a little bit more. So it really takes your willingness to open up and develop a relationship with them, just like any kind of therapy session. And a couples therapy, it's like, what's the most important thing is communication. It's the same thing with your guides. And the more that you communicate with them, the more you understand that. So it's developing it and then also receiving this validation from your messages so that you start to understand this is real and taking action on your intuition. So let's say they give you a message about something, you take the action, and then you start to understand, oh my gosh, that worked out so well. And I understand this is my intuition. So it's part of that opening up one and allowing yourself to remove any old fear. And one of the things that helped me is just realizing I have a team of helpers that get to filter out who can talk to me and who can't. Because for me, as a highly sensitive person, it was, oh, I can't like discern all the things. Well, once you have your connection with your guides, they do the discerning for you. So you don't have to worry about it, which is a really beautiful
So like kind of like
experience.
screening out, what's relevant to be in your space. You said it was protector, teacher. What was the other one?
A guide.
Okay.
So they will kind of guide you with your intuitive hunches and guide you to the people that you need to meet, guide you to a situation opportunity. Your teacher guide does two things. Your teacher guide helps you with lessons that you need to learn on the earth plane and also teaches you knowledge about things that you need to learn. So sometimes we will know more about something than we realize. So years ago, I went on an astral visit and I came back and remembered nothing, but I had learned about celiac disease. I was like, I don't know why I learned about that. I don't have it. Well, fast forward years later, I don't have celiac disease, but I have to be gluten-free for another condition. So it was, oh, okay, I got knowledge there. And all of a sudden I started getting more information about gluten-free, gluten-free, gluten-free. So your teacher will teach you things and also take you on astral visits to meet people. So sometimes people go, I must have known you from a past life, or you look so familiar. And most of the time we've gone on an astral visit because our teacher guide has already orchestrated the meeting before it's happened.
That's so
And then,
trippy.
and I know, right? I had a crazy good experience with that one time where I have to just share. I was teaching a Reiki class at the time, and it was a private Reiki class, and a gentleman was coming in. And the night before, I remember vividly, I was in this dream with my teacher guide and a woman. And we were meeting this woman from India. And so I talked to her, I was getting ready to teach her. And then I woke up and that was it. I go into my Reiki class and I meet the man, and his wife comes and said, my guide told me about you and I have to take this class with you. And this family was from India.
Wow.
And I said, okay, I don't have an extra book, but I know you're supposed to take this class.
Wow.
So it's really wild.
So the synchrony that can ensue when we just, like you said, open ourselves and trust. Because for me, that's been I've had a lot of religious programming, and it's been hard to decipher, sometimes you just throw it all out and start all over and reconstruct,
Yeah.
and especially things of the spirit, because they are sacred. So anyway, um I know that that's still a work in progress for me to sort of define that for myself and allow myself to be more
Mhm.
open to these good influences that can guide this process of what is my life. Um, okay, cool. Well, yeah. So the top 3 ways to connect with your guides, and then we'll kind of wrap that up. We may have already covered it. The top three
Yeah.
ways to connect to them.
I also wanted to say too that, one doesn't have to give up their religious beliefs to work with their guides
Oh,
either.
absolutely.
And, and your spirit guides can work in tandem with your beliefs. I think that's one of the questions I get is, well, I have to like completely, look at a different way. And I'm like, they're just a complement to what you already have in place as well. They
Mhm.
can be with that. So top 3 ways. One is to develop your 4 intuitive language. So developing your intuitive language, that's going to be absolutely key to doing that. Number 2 is be consistent and meet with them every day. And sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, conditions have to be right. I have to, sage the house, or it has to be super
Have to
clean.
be in
And
like a
like,
super meditative state. Everything has
I
to be
know.
quiet. Yeah.
I have to meditate for hours. And so I'll say, no, you don't. Just reserve 5 to 15 minutes each day and talk to them. You can talk to them out loud, like I'm talking to you, or you can do it with intuitive thought. You can talk to them in your mind with your inner reading voice with the intention that they hear it. A lot of times we just assume our spirit guides know everything, and they don't. They won't read our mind. We have to actually communicate with them just like we communicate with people in a relationship, and then receive those messages. So consistency is going to be really important.
Mm,
And number 3 is going to be really make a point to clear your mind and really allow yourself to be. So meditation is great if that's a way to clear your mind, but I
mhm,
have a couple tips that you can just do it in 5 seconds. So one way is one of my favorites is to imagine that you are having a chalkboard in front of you and all of your thoughts are written on the chalkboard, and you just take an eraser, and this kind of taps into every intuitive language. So
mm,
you could literally take the eraser in your hand and just do this.
mhm,
But you can also really hear that eraser erasing away all those thoughts.
mm,
You can see it. You can feel it by using your body. It's channeler. So it's more so once that is completely clean, intending that your mind is also clear as well. So that's a really quick, easy way to clear your mind. And I love sharing other ways to do that too, because sometimes we think it has to be hours, and it's like, nope, let's just
no.
do it really
And that
quickly.
right there keeps us from that, right? It's just
Yes.
the tangible's right in front of you. That's the like next thing that needs your attention. And that's where we put our priority. And oftentimes it's like, I don't know if this is doing any good. I'm sitting here meditating, I'm praying, I'm doing these things. And I don't know if I'm just talking to myself or what the deal is. So I do, for me, trust is a big, big part of that. The trust
Yeah,
that I am being heard, and that
absolutely.
I'm being validated and noticed.
Absolutely. Validation is really key to trusting. So there's a couple ways you can do that too. The more that you have these meetings with your guides, what I like to say is write it down, or you can write it on your memo app on your phone, or do a voice memo as well. And you can refer back to it for that validation.
Mhm.
You can also have a partner. And this is one of the things I do in my programs is we'll go ahead and assign partners and get on Zoom, and it's really nice to have a validation with intuitive exercises there. So maybe you have a friend that you can really say, okay, let's do this exercise together. I'm just going to, clear my mind and start giving you whatever's coming through. And that person can help validate that experience for you too. So there's a couple ways to do it if you don't know anybody that's
Mhm.
into this, or if you want to validate it with yourself.
Yeah. And having a tribe, I think, that can do that
Mhm.
for you is huge.
My gosh, yes.
Thank you, Whitney, so much. This has been really fascinating. Where can people find you online?
Sure. So you can find me on any social at Messenger Spirit, or you can go to my website at messengerspirit.com. And there's a quiz on the website to help you find your primary intuitive language.
Ooh, I'm going to go take it.
Yeah.
The owl is really speaking to me.
It's fun. It's messengersphere.com/quiz.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.